dig up a past I swore and stay buried.
You will always be a monster.
Ares! I have nothing more to hide.
The ghost of Sparta had been hid.
So we all know Kratos is something else. He slaughtered an entire pantheon and is working through a second one. And now I'm thinking, given the fact that God of War 2018 has referenced other lands, their respective deities, and the fact that the game was originally going to take place in Egypt, it's very likely that we are going to see Kratos slaughter 1 or 2 more pantheons. In a way, Kratos is also a sad character, since it is inevitable that no matter what he does, no matter how hard he tries, he will always end up in strife with another pantheon, slay them all and ruin yet another realm by bringing out yet another apocalypse. But what if this wasn't simply the consequence of ill luck or fate, but rather the purposeful manipulations of another? Many fans already assume Kratos' second wife, Faye, is manipulating him to destroy the Norse pantheon, but what if it goes back much further and much deeper than that? To begin with, let us return to the beginning and study the incident that transformed Kratos from a willing servant of the gods and into a vengeful, bloodthirsty killer. It all began when Ares decided that Kratos' family is impeding his potential as a warrior and the servant of the old Greek god of war. And so Ares decided to take Kratos' wife and daughter, dump them in a city Kratos is burning to a pulp, so that he unwittingly slaughters them. And then immediately, Ares shows up to take credit for the entire thing. Is there anything wrong with that? Sure, Ares isn't famed for his tactical abilities in classical mythology, but even by his standards, this is an outrageously foolish move. Basically, everything about that plan ensures that Kratos will despise Ares and likely rebel, especially when it would be far less risky and far simpler to simply let some enemy soldier kill Kratos' family, or better yet, disguise himself as an enemy soldier and do it himself, then show up after the fact and tell Kratos that it happened because it was too soft, he was too soft, and that the same would happen to the rest of Sparta, lest he get his act together. And in the 2018 game, much we learn about the Aesir comes from murals left by giants or Mimir, but if you pay close attention to Mimir's tales, you'll find something odd. In the story of Hrungnir, the stone giant, Odin sends the giant to Asgard to party, and when Hrungnir gets intoxicated, he starts bouncing around and yelling about how he's going to murder everyone, at which point Thor enters and kills Hrungnir. This narrative is used to portray Odin and Thor as harsh and unpleasant, yet consider yourself in Thor's shoes. If you came into a room and saw a giant inebriated guy yelling and raving about killing everyone in the room, wouldn't you try to stop him? The story about Mjolnir being stolen attempts to portray the perpetrator, Thrym, as cunning, despite the fact that all he did to obtain the hammer was just luckily stumble upon Thor sleeping and rob him. And the act required zero ingenuity. Thrym then offered to give the hammer back in exchange for Freya's hand and move any sane man would deem stupid, given that the hammer was the greatest weapon in the possession of the Aesir gods. The story of how Asgard's walls were created portrays the gods as double-crossing, backstabbers, except that they kept their end of the bargain. They struck with Hrimthor and gave him his meeting with Freya. Yes, they did kill him afterwards, but nothing in the beds mentioned him living alive. When you stop to think about the story, certain questions arise. Sure, if Hrimthor expected to leave alive, why did he request an audience with Freya to tell her about the wall's weakness instead of taking that information back to the giants? And why would Hrimthor make a bet at all rather than asking for a low but appropriate wage for his efforts to avoid suspicion? The story of Groa, the giant sorceress, portrays her collecting every scrap of magical knowledge to expand her power as a good thing, but every story of Odin doing the same thing is portrayed negatively, despite the fact that she is only doing it to find her husband, and Odin is trying to prevent the end of the world. And while everyone in the game thinks that Ragnarok coming true is a dreadful thing, when Mimir narrates the story of Surtur the fire giant, he asserts that the giant's dedication to making it happen is a wonderful and honorable thing. As a result, these stories appear to have been deliberately designed to make gods look as awful as possible, while giving the giants every benefit of the doubt, even to the point of making them viewed as heroes. While true Norse mythology, which the game argues is Odin's propaganda, depicts the Aesir in a more honorable, albeit imperfect, light. Now consider which account is most likely to be correct. But consider what we do know to be true. The Jotun and Aesir have been at odds for centuries, if not millennia. The Jotun are incredibly skilled sorcerers with the power of prophecy, which is especially true for Fae, who we know spent years preparing for the events of the 2018 game. And it's possible to bewitch someone into believing false information without them even realizing it. Now, Odin is too paranoid and knowledgeable in magic to ever allow himself to be bewitched, and Thor is extremely wary of the giants, so such a spell will never be cast on him. But what about others who are more eager for peace, such as Tyr, Mimir, Freya, or even the most two skilled dwarven blacksmiths in all the 9 realms? Faye would have had a little impact on Kratos' deeds in Greece, and now that she's dead, it's unlikely she will have an influence on his butchering of future pantheons. She can be a part of the plot, but not the major factor inspiring Kratos' ongoing god butchering, so it wouldn't be Faye who would have been manipulating Kratos, who continues to push Kratos on this path. Who would it be? Well, there are always the Celtic deities on the second European-born pantheon that is sometimes disregarded in favor of the Olympians and Asgardians. They were mentioned in God of War 2018, and their civilization had a great fondness for deception and trickery with might, and considering how little is known about their culture to the general people now, they may easily have been spared Kratos' murder by being forgotten. However, their presence begs the issue of what interest they would have in a desert country like Egypt or the other lands mentioned such as Japan and Mesoamerica. As a result, it's unlikely they'd want to provoke Kratos' future rampages. So who could be behind all of this? Well, first, we would have to suspect 2 things. 1, whoever this person is, they are cunning and intelligent enough to be able to manipulate a man like Kratos. And 2, this person is not powerful enough to wipe out the gods themselves. And you know who that sounds like to me? It sounds like someone who tried this before. It sounds like Athena. It was literally what she was trying to do throughout God of War 3. Kill all the gods so that she can have ultimate power. Kratos kills Athena when she sacrificed herself to save Zeus in God of War 2, but then reappears in God of War 3 and begins scheming against Zeus, which even Kratos finds unusual. Another interesting aspect of her return is that she does so in an astral form, which no other god in any of the games possesses. Zeus demonstrates a power similar to it near death, but not only is he quickly defeated, but it does not allow him to survive his fate. So this trait is, for some reason, uniquely specific to Athena. It also makes sense. Why else would Athena follow Kratos to the Norse lands? Her initial goal in God of War 3 was ultimate power, and I find it hard to believe that she has let go of her ambitions so easily. Her astral form could give her powers beyond our comprehension, the ability to traverse between realms and manipulate Kratos as she wishes. Her words clearly seem to impact Kratos. She's after Kratos for a reason, she was in God of War 2018 for a reason, and it would be absolutely insane to see a glimpse of her plans in the upcoming God of War game, and how it could link to future God of War games outside of the Norse myth.